Acting as the first of many sequels in the Five Nights at Freddy's series, it was clear when FNaF 2 was announced that it had a lot to live up to. It was a game which followed in the footsteps of the viral sensation that the first game had become, and Scott had to make sure that it would effectively recreate and expand upon everything that made that game so popular in the first place. Everyone who loved the first FNaF, including a much younger version of myself, waited in bated breath for the release of FNaF 2, hoping it would be everything we could possibly want and more from a sequel to such an iconic horror game. And in my opinion, the game delivered in almost every single way upon release. FNaF 2 did an amazing job at giving us more of everything. There were more entrances to your office, more animatronics, more cameras, more hints at the lore, more Easter eggs, etc. If it was a thing in FNaF 1, FNaF 2 provided more of it. Except doors, I guess, but you know what I mean. The result of these big additions to the game was an experience which was extremely stressful and more difficult than any other main series title for a very long time. FNaF 2 is a game which thrives off of the chaos all these new additions to its gameplay add to the experience. By having a roster more than double the size in an environment with no doors, Scott was able to create a game where every single situation makes the player feel like they're vulnerable to whatever wanders into the office next. And it's this chaotic atmosphere which I feel gives FNaF 2 its identity, as well as making it one of the best in the franchise. So let's talk about that in depth. Today I plan to analyze all the choices made from a gameplay design standpoint that make FNaF 2 the hectic hellscape we all remember it for, and I also plan to discuss the pros and cons that these decisions led to in the finalized game. So with introductions aside, let's delve into it. As I said before, if there is one way to sum up what playing FNaF 2 feels like, it's chaos. Everything in FNaF 2 caters towards this unending feeling of tension, like every single decision you make will end in death no matter what it is or when you do it. And this is achieved in several ways with the way Scott made the game, the first of which being the sheer number of animatronics you have to deal with each night. In the original FNaF game, we had a roster of 4 animatronics which hunted us down every single night: Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. These 4 were difficult enough on their own, making the original Five Nights at Freddy's a challenging but enjoyable experience. When 2 rolled around, however, Scott decided to up the ante tenfold by turning our old roster of 4 into a colorful cast of 11 total threats to deal with. This change is what immediately made FNaF 2 so overwhelming for players to deal with them constantly trying to learn the ins and outs of how each character worked when they arrived at the office and trying to keep track of every single one before they inevitably did. This enormous roster is what the fundamental gameplay of FNaF 2 is built upon, with every single task you try to do being interrupted by something undesirable arriving at your office before you have time to finish it. It makes it so that with each hour that passes, you the player have less and less time to do what's necessary to survive, as the animatronics become more and more aggressive and begin to stack up at your vents and hallway in ways that completely screw you over. A great example of what I'm talking about here comes in the form of this clip of me failing an attempt at night 6, where a good run gets completely ruined when too many animatronics show up at once, leading to my death.
In fact, for probably 110 years, I guess. You might be able to salvage it.
I feel like this clip perfectly showcases just how insane to manage later nights in this game get. With the amount of characters who show up at once, I desperately try to juggle the music box, the hallway, and the mask, only for it all to become too much and I end up dying to the puppet in the end anyway. Attempts like that one are examples of this game functioning at its best in my opinion, with so many threats popping up all at once that it completely overwhelms you. More often than not, those kinds of attempts lead to a quick jump scare. However, I feel that when you actually do get through it all despite the chaos of everything happening around you, it's one of the most rewarding feelings the series has to offer. Now, with all that said, I must admit that there is a pretty huge gripe I have with FNaF 2 regarding the amount of animatronics in the game. and it has to do with how they were implemented. It was clear that when making this installment of the series, Scott wanted to make it the biggest and most overwhelming game imaginable, and for the most part he succeeded. However, I feel like in trying to achieve this, Scott ended up sacrificing many of the animatronics' individuality. To show you what I mean, let's take a look at the roster of the game. Of this roster of 11 animatronics, 5 of them function as essentially reskins of each other, these characters being Withered Freddy, Withered Bonnie, Withered Chica, and Toy Freddy. Each one of these characters has the exact same mechanic. They wander into your room, forcing down your camera, they stare at you for a couple seconds, and if you put on the mask quick enough, they leave. The only real variation to this mechanic is where the animatronics come from, and in the case of the 2 Freddys, this isn't even true, with both of them attacking you from the middle hallway. I feel like this greatly takes away from the feeling of having 11 threats to deal with, because despite there being so many enemies, it doesn't really feel like it sometimes with how similar half the roster is. Mind you, the animatronics that are really unique do have really cool mechanics, like Toy Bonnie, the Puppet, and Foxy for example. And the animatronics that are built the same way don't take too much away from the experience to invalidate what I said about it already. It just feels like something more could have been done to make what was already a super stressful experience even better. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. And going back to those really unique mechanics of FNaF 2, that's the next part of its gameplay I would love to talk about, as I feel that the fundamental mechanics you use through each night really set up the foundation for how hectic the game ends up being, especially in later nights. Now, if you read the title for this section, allow me to elaborate on what I mean by conflicting mechanics. One thing I noticed a lot in my recent playthroughs of FNaF 2 is that there are effectively 3 primary mechanics you have to keep track of every single night. Those 3 mechanics being the mask you must wear to ward off 9 of the 11 animatronics, using your flashlight to fend off Foxy in the hallway, and winding up the music box so the puppet doesn't come after you. These 3 mechanics are equally as important as the others, with each one serving as a way to fend off really dangerous threats to your survival. However, what I feel makes the 3 of them work so well to create the atmosphere FNaF 2 is known for is the fact that each one of them conflicts with the other. When you wear your mask to fend off anyone in the office, you can't flip up the camera to wind the music box, and you can't use the flashlight to fend off Foxy. If you take the time to flash the hallway, that's time you could be spending winding the music box, or putting on your mask for whatever threats may be coming to your left or your right. And then of course, having your camera up to wind the music box puts you at risk of something undesirable sneaking into your office and killing you, as well as Foxy using that time to leap out of the hallway. No matter which of these 3 primary tasks you choose to do, you risk the other 2 falling behind, leading to your death. This works so perfectly to create the chaos FNaF 2 is known for, forcing the player to constantly try and figure out which one to prioritize at any given point in the night. As the night goes further and further, these decisions become harder and harder to make because you're given less time to choose. The music box will inevitably get closer to winding down, more animatronics will stack up in your room, and your flashlight battery will get closer and closer to dying the longer the night goes, making it absolutely essential you know which of the 3 tasks to do at any given time. In a game where you have very few windows of opportunity, even when you've made the right decision, you'll still feel like you're going to die for it. Every second you wind the music box, you worry about what will be behind your monitor when you put it down. Every time you wear the Freddy mask, you feel like Foxy's jump scare is soon approaching. And every time you use the flashlight, you fear what may be to your left or to your right. It's a perfect trio of mechanics which work together to make you sweat from the beginning to the end of each night. And they, alongside the sheer number of animatronics you have to deal with 24/7, combine together with the last thing I want to talk about to make FNaF 2 one of the most chaotic games in the entire main series. Elements of randomness have always been a huge part of the gameplay of the FNaF series, whether it be how regularly the animatronics come to your doors, how long Freddy takes to kill you when the power goes out, or how long it takes for them to leave. Small pieces of randomness are part of what make FNaF games replayable and challenging. I feel like this is especially the case with FNaF 2. The small pieces of randomness come into the game at times where you feel like you finally have a proper flow of mechanics, often messing you up when you aren't ready for it. Whether it be Foxy appearing frequently in the hallway, one withered animatronic appearing in your office after another, or Toy Bonnie just refusing to go away. These elements in quick succession can make a run where everything is going right quickly fall apart right in front of you. I feel like this both works with and hurts the experience of FNaF 2. On one hand, these random elements can work greatly in your favor to make some attempts at more higher difficulties feel way better to play. On the other hand, however, this can be absolutely infuriating because it often feels like the game is completely cheating you out of a victory you would otherwise deserve. Personally, I lean more on the end of enjoying the randomness, as it keeps each new playthrough I do of FNaF 2 feeling new and fresh, and it also gives me cool experiences which are exclusive to that playthrough. However, I fully understand anyone who is driven insane by this aspect of any FNaF game. Feeling like luck dictates your success is a very frustrating experience, and it can very easily take away a lot of people's incentive to attempt later challenges like the infamous Golden Freddy mode. Regardless of your feelings towards them though, you cannot deny that these random elements do play a large part of the overwhelming feeling that each playthrough of FNaF 2 ends up being. It adds that little extra layer that the other two elements I discussed already had, acting as the cherry on top to what was already an extremely tense experience, and I think it overall improves the game, making it one of the most memorable the series has to offer. To conclude, FNaF 2 did a lot right in creating the perfect stressful gameplay loop Scott wanted from it. The massive roster of animatronics who randomly appear through the night combined with the 3 unique mechanics which tie them all together work to create an experience which is very difficult to finish consistently. Even if corners were cut in the animatronic department to make this design happen, I still feel like the game is in a good spot because of it, and I'm happy with what we ended up getting. If you've made it this far, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to check this video out. You help me out a ton and allow me to share my passion about a series I hold dear to my heart. I hope to see you back in whatever my next project ends up being, and I look forward to what it will be. Goodbye for now.
I wish I could.